Hey, Nicole Wrights here, and today I'd like to talk about reading Lexiles. Or, in other words, reading levels. When I was going to school, we had them. As early as 6th grade, I was told to take a reading test on the computer, and basically what you had to do was pick out 3 of your favorite genres, and then they'd give you things to read in those 3 genres, and you'd answer questions about them. Simple enough, right? So this reading level Lexile thing wasn't a big deal for me. I did it, I had fun, and I scored pretty high. Teachers were kind of like, that's really high. And I was like, I like to read. I apparently scored like at an 8th grade level or something like that in the 6th grade, but that didn't really mean anything to me because who cared, I was reading. Now some kids scored a lot lower and some kids scored average. I mean, everyone's different. And I didn't really, I was in 6th grade. I didn't really care about other kids. I got my score, that's fine. I was like, yeah, Mom, I read and I did well and I passed this test. And she was like, oh, that's great, here's a book. That's how it went. And my younger brother, Josh, he even scored so high in one of his grades that they thought the computer had messed up, or that, he had cheated somehow. Now, eventually they found out that his score was completely legitimate. He just read all the time, always reading in some fashion or another. And I don't even know how he got half the books that he got, but he would just turn up with these books. And my little brother would be reading them and be like, oh yeah, that was a great read. I loved reading about Stephen Hawking. And I'm over here in the 8th grade, who is Stephen Hawking? But again, he was a reader. And all my siblings and I were encouraged to, but we were the 2 that were reading like we needed to in order to survive. And going through school, my brother and I never really minded being told to read books by teachers as assignments, whether classical or not. In my case, I just liked reading. And I could get through even parts that I thought were dry. In my brother's case, he had already read all those books because he wanted to on his free time. I guess we were kind of odd, but yesterday I was on Twitter and I follow one of the first authors who I really connected personally with one of her characters. So when I became an adult, I followed her on Twitter because I was interested in her takes on literacy and reading, and I like to hear about her writing because I'm a fan, you know? But yesterday, I started to notice that she was talking a lot about reading levels and how it's really discouraging kids. And I just want to read you a little bit about what's been being said. The 2 tweets, that went right after each other, that I first saw really got to me, and it prompted me to read on about what she was talking about and what other people were tweeting her about, and it became this whole big thing where I was just like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. Parents, there's so much pressure on us getting our kiddos reading. We're constantly told their reading level, how they compare to others. But please don't let anyone pressure you into making reading a chore. I know it's hard, but there are so many options. Picture books, audiobooks, graphic novels, magazines, amazing fact books, worldless picture books, reading aloud, reading together. Not all kiddos take to reading at the same age or in the same way. That's okay. And I've known this. I had grown up being taught this by my mother, by my father. I mean, both of my parents were like, read whatever you want. I never really thought about reading levels, ever, because it was never an issue for me because I got high ones. But for kids who are getting low ones, they should still be into reading. But anyway, then I went on and I read a little bit further and I got to something that kind of broke my heart. I read a tweet that somebody had tweeted to Shannon Hale, and it went as follows. Breaks my reading teacher heart when students are taught reading level equals good reading. I want lifelong readers, not test takers. And then I found the tweet that literally broke my reader heart. Shannon Hale had retweeted it from another Twitter account, and it went as followed. When you see a 6th grade boy mutter, she said those books didn't count because of Lexile, ask yourself, is this right? And oh my God, that's what drove me nuts, because I remembered as a child in middle school, they were like, okay, they pointed you towards the books that they wanted you to read for your level. And even as an adult, that has not rung true for me. Like, yes, I'll read these ones that are in my level, but that's not a rule. Certainly, there is no reason that should be the rule. I read books for elementary schoolers and also for middle schoolers and for young adults and for adults. I read a wide range. And to be told that you have to read a book in a specific reading level is insanity. You should read what you love, and honestly, I love young adult fantasy. So that's what I read. That's what I write. But it's not the only thing I read and write, and it's because I was given the room as a child to grow in a way that let me flourish. I was never told, you can't read that book because it's for boys. You can't read that book because it's for girls. You can't read that book because it's not in your reading level. My mom didn't care about reading levels. My dad didn't care about reading levels. If I was reading a book, they were like, good on you, kid. Keep reading that book. And then they'd buy me more books. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is I'm really disgusted that our learning and our education system has taken such a toxic spin on reading levels and reading. If you want to get a kid to read, let them read things that interest them. The Titanic, kittens. I mean, that's what I did when I was allowed into the media center and you could pick one book in elementary school. I would pick a book that I thought looked interesting, whether it was. And I mean, I would go through the animals and I'd learn about an animal that day. I wanted a hamster, I'd learn about a hamster. I wanted to read a book from the Magic Tree House, I'd read that because I wanted some adventure. It's just, they gave you the choice. And I think that choice, I mean, the United States is built on the foundation of freedom. We have the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, I mean, the freedom to read. So why schools are being so uptight about what you should be reading boggles my mind. If you want kids to read, you have to start by letting them read things that they're interested in and by letting them know that reading is okay, whether it's a graphic novel, a comic book, anything, because graphic novels and comic books are amazing. There are so many manga that I've read and comic books. I have a whole shelf dedicated to comic books because my father was like, oh, you haven't been reading a lot lately? There's a new comic book store and I loved comic books, so let's go pick out some comic books. Like, we have a problem and the way to fix it is there. We just need to take the time and the steps to let children of all ages pick out books for themselves and feel good about it and just read to them. Show them books, just encourage it. That's all you have to do. I'm just so upset about this topic. But I really wanted to thank Shannon Hale for bringing it up because it is a big problem and I didn't see it, but it is. And it's affecting children. So yeah, I'm kind of turning into a firecracker, so I'm going to cut this video off now. Thank you for watching, and please support reading in a positive way because that's what's going to get these kids reading, not forcing them to read books on the reading level. Shocker.